so we want to create some kind of discipline around our imagination and cultivate it into a practice. So the imagination is very flexible, okay? It can go in any direction. One thing I like is also when you think about a future, but you can't really go there. Maybe you try to go to the negative, like, what would be really bad if it would happen? Or what would never happen? Like that's like totally out of reality. That would never happen.
You are listening to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, providing those with the desire to grow with the simple, consistent actions needed to master personal development and create the life they yearn for. I'm your host, 𝗁𝗁𝗄𝗄𝗄. A few years ago, I found myself unfulfilled and unmotivated, like I had lost my sense of purpose and my life was merely passing by. Since then, I've been on a continuous journey of personal development that has transformed every aspect of my life. Now, my mission is to inspire you to grow, stand out, and take action towards a purposeful and fulfilling life. In this podcast, I invite myself inside the minds of remarkable entrepreneurs, authors, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, people who share their journey, milestones, and learnings for you to be inspired to grow. In each episode, you will find practical action points that you can implement right now. So make sure you follow the podcast to get them as soon as they are released. In today's show, I'm delighted to speak with Christoph Weigert. Christoph, you are a fiction and non-fiction author, as well as a trauma-sensitive creativity coach. You say that you turned on your own power of imagination in 2015, and your book on imagination had many people fall in love with their creative powers or reignited the passion of artists. Christoph, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to speak with you today.
Hello, 𝗁𝗁𝗄𝗄. Thank you for having me and for the nice introduction. And also hello to all the listeners.
The topic of imagination is something that, as I was telling you earlier on, I have a personal fascination about, and I believe it's not discussed as much as it should be or as it deserves to to be discussed. So we'll certainly go there. Before we discuss imagination, what I would like to start with is if you could take us back in that time in 2015, which I suppose there must be some kind of a key moment in your life. Can you take us back there? What were you doing and what happened for you to turn on imagination, as you say?
Thank you. That's an amazing question. I just moved from Bavaria to Berlin, the capital of Germany. I finished my physiotherapy school and I started working as a physiotherapist. And in some online forum, I saw this kind of like quote, which said, whenever you place imagination against like personal willpower, the imagination will always be stronger. And this was kind of this key quote that had me like spinning. I was thinking about like how can imagination be stronger than personal will, because personal will can move mountains and everything. And then somehow I discovered this person and he created this whole this whole philosophy of imagination and how it's actually like the next logical big step in our evolution, like after we learned from the ancient philosophers like logic. Never someone gave like full play to the power of creativity and imagination that it played also in the evolution in our society or in for us as humans. Like yeah, so I took his courses and I did hundreds of hours and I did imagination exercises, and one exercise was about painting faster than you can paint, and you just draw up some symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hang these pictures in my room, which was like about 50 to 70 pictures. And then I was out of town and a friend was renting out my room in Airbnb. And then someone bought 2 of these pictures that I painted in minutes. I just I didn't think about anything, was like action painting. And so this was for me a key moment where I realized, like, okay, also in my personal life, this imagination thing has like serious effects, because suddenly I was like someone who sold art. So I think this was a key moment, and this whole time, like immersing myself for a year or two in these like different exercises, which really transformed myself. Because when I moved to Berlin, I had a friend, she's from Mexico, and she's like this real artist, never worked anything besides doing art in all its shapes and forms. And I was like, really inspired by her and her way of seeing the world. But I also always felt this pain that I could not really appreciate the world from this kind of artistic viewpoint and perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But so over time, I see how that also has changed, and I now feel also more connected to like the artistic perspective.
Can I ask you, because you talk about the artistic viewpoint, and I think the role of imagination in art is very obvious. I mean, it's very difficult to create, if at all, to create art without imagination. But what about people that are not really artists, or they're not involved with art in their everyday life? What can imagination do for them?
Yeah. So as a first step, if you look around and into the objects in your room, and you can try to think of the story behind the objects, like this, like the technology we're using right now to communicate, your furniture. It's all kind of like a brainchild of someone's imagination. Like everything around us, the way we build houses before we build huts, or the different housing styles. Now we have tiny houses. We have 3D printed houses coming. So it's all around us is imagination, and you need to take some moments, minutes, hours to like just take a walk, just look at your life, look around you, and appreciate the fact that it's all based on imagination, like many things around us. So this would be a first step. And then it's the same as if you're not happy with the shape of your body. You go up the stairs, you're like out of breath after 2 flights of stairs. So what can you do? You start to train. You maybe go to the gym, you take longer walks, you start to develop your body, your physical capabilities. You reconnect with the inherent power of your body. And the same we can do for our imaginations. We can go to a museum, get inspired by artists' imagination, by life around us, as I've already said. When you're reading a book, you kind of always using your imagination to different degrees, because then you're creating these characters in your mind. And also when you're worrying about the future, for example, it's your imagination just you're misusing it maybe to worry. So you're painting like a negative scenario. So what you could then do is paint. So next week you have an appointment coming up with your boss or spouse or whatever. You're worried. Create 3, 4, 5, whatever different scenarios how this appointment could go. Like a really bad scenario, a like normal, a good one, and one like beyond amazing. So yeah, I think this is something that everyone can use right away for their life.
It's what you said about worrying about the future is, well, we're using our imagination against us rather than for us. And I think the worry, as you said it, I think connects with this concept with many people, with the sense that when we worry, most of the times we don't intentionally worry. So it starts happening, and then an internal dialogue of images and sounds and dialogues and scenarios happens, usually in the way that we don't want, and that happens without us wanting. So I suppose one of the differences of using our imagination for our advantage would be to deliberately practice that. And you already gave a couple of practical exercises, like looking at the story behind the objects in your room, which I'm actually going to do that myself. It's very interesting because and I will share, and maybe you can explain that to me, that sometimes I feel that my imagination is kind of blocked. I mean, I want to imagine or spend some time, and think about an aspect of the future or something like that. But my mind does not go to that direction. So I lose the concentration very quickly and come back to other issues or things like that. So can you tell me if there is something that can be done to cultivate imagination in these situations?
So first of all, I also want to acknowledge like what you said before, that often it's then like on automatic kind of our imagination. So a first step is really to bring more consciousness to it and cultivation, that like a training that you do a few times a week. And maybe this also connects to what you said, because often like something doesn't work out in the first few minutes or sessions, and then we become discouraged. But often in life it seems that it's the case that we have to persevere and also strengthen our perseverance to show life and fate and whatever, like, okay, we really mean it. I like this. There's this story, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's like, okay, so you're planning something and then shit happens, it's not working out, and they call it the gargoyles, some mystical creatures that are trying to bring you off path. And if you notice that you're just tested by life, you can willfully stay on path. And so that's also then, I would say, the point where the will and imagination connect again. Because, so we want to create some kind of discipline around our imagination and like cultivate it into a practice. But then the thing is, so often, so the imagination is very flexible, okay? It can go in any direction.
Yes.
One thing I like is also when you think about a future, but you can't really go there. Maybe you try to go to the negative, like, what would be really bad if it would happen, or what would never happen, like that's like totally out of reality, that would never happen. So you can try to go at it from different perspectives and angles, or maybe if it's not working for yourself, maybe you imagine yourself to be like another person, or like for which version of myself could this future happen, or how could I go to this future as another person?
Yeah.
Also, I really like also so because we can talk about something, we can write about something, we can make a picture about something. So we have these different channels that we can connect with something. So if you can't think about the future, maybe you can like dance it or make like sounds according to it. So yeah, so you try to go at it from different perspectives.
That's very it's fascinating, the rather than restricting your imagination to thinking, to use other senses or elements to do that. That's very very useful. And actually, you said earlier on to make it into a discipline, into a practice. So let's say someone is starting here and wants to do some kind of simple practice to enhance, to improve their imagination. When you say practice, do you mean like setting aside 10 minutes and say, now these 10 minutes I'm going to focus on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
10 minutes is good.
I gave an example.
That's
yes.
yeah. I mean, all the more the merrier.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also use it like when you're outside, when you're just going from place A to place B. So maybe you can incorporate it into your daily life. So one exercise is called mindscaping. It's from Frederick Dodson, to give proper credit. And so you look at the space around you. Maybe you're in the subway or in a restaurant, and you think, okay, what would bring this place to like the next level? What would it make it more exciting, more beautiful, more interesting? Or what would be like a surprising element for this space? So you're kind of like using your mind to upgrade the space around you. Or maybe even if you look at people and you say, and it's also always good like to bring it down. So you're like flexible. You're like using your imagination also to see like what would bring it down, and then also what would bring it up. So you get like this flexibility of thinking. But then also look at people, like, okay, what would be if they went on their inner personal development journey? Like, how would they look after 5 years? What would they wear? What would they think about? Or another beautiful one, again, when you're outside and there are people around you, you can just imagine to start like a telepathic conversation with someone. So it's probably not gonna feel super real at the beginning, but that's also like why we're using the imagination to kind of like priming the pump. We're like slowly like digging or like making a connection to things. So until they feel more and more real. And so you can, you imagine you're sending like thoughts or pictures to the other person, and they somehow receive it, and then they send something back to you.
I do have quite a few questions that come to mind with what you were saying. One, I want to ask you. So what exactly do you use your imagination for? Maybe tell me that to start with. So give me an example, something specific that you do.
Mm-hmm. Well, so my applied imagination, I think, for example, with my writing my novel, like you're writing, then you come to a halt, the ideas run out. So you just sit, and then something, like usually then some like a whole like scene, or maybe it's only like a word pops up, and you're good to go again. So you write another like couple of words. So for me, it has for sure developed this capacity to generate like ideas and pictures that somehow move me forward. Or I have this new project. So I've always been writing poems. And so nowadays I call them Picasso with words. And then I had this idea, because then the imagination, again, what we talked about, so how can you make something like more interesting or more bigger, more exciting? So then this idea somehow came to me that I'm writing the poem about a person, or maybe about like an event, like a conference, or about a company. Kind of like personal, like affirmations, personal branding, something in between. So now I got together with my designer. So now we have like a picture of the person, and above the picture of the person we write the poem. But then not only like the poem, but also like in an artistic way, like you add elements. So it's this combination of the impact of like the person's picture and the text about the person and this artistic perspective. But that's just, so you work on something. So I think it also has to do with immersion. You immerse yourself in this new project, and as you keep spending time thinking about this project, also ideas will come to you. And I would say with the imagination, when you actively train it, or if it's already like active because as a child no one told you stop dreaming and stop your myth making and shut up and conform to society, because no one ever told you that, your imagination is still active and you don't need to train it, basically. I think the frequency of ideas can increase, and maybe also like the emotional impact. So you have an idea, and you already have this like, when it's gonna happen, it's gonna be like amazing. Like I already get this like the feelings of how it's gonna be when it has transpired to reality.
Thank you. Let me ask you something else, Christoph. Are there factors that reduce our imagination, or kill it, or prevent it from, being so vivid?
Yeah, I think in our culture we have a huge influx of other people's imagination, like aimed towards us. If we look into a screen, movies, they're other people's imagination, And it can be useful once in a while, like as if you go into a museum and you're getting inspired, or you're an architect, you look at other people's houses, but then you have to start building your own house. Because if not, you think like, oh, I can't really do it, but I admire the other people. So there always needs to come the point when we then also like start going for the expression of our own ideas and imaginations. And then, of course, as I've already mentioned, I think there's this cut when we go to school and we become more like focused on reality and numbers and what's like a logical thing to do in society, like how can you make money. So these are all factors that block the imagination. If someone tells you like you're singing, you love to sing, and then someone tells you your voice sucks, and then we create the story in ourselves. Yeah, my voice sucks, so I never express it again. So I think it has always to do with outside influences, but then when we in ourselves, maybe in this like fragile moment of pain, when we say like, yeah, that's true, that's real, then we put also a lid on our imagination by ourselves. And yeah, then so this could be like limiting factors, and then like use it or lose it. So if we don't use it, of course it goes away. And yeah,
I think that's the importance of what you were saying earlier about training, and you use the word training, I think, or practicing or discipline, because for many it has gone away because it has not been used consciously or in a creative way. So it might require some practicing some exercises to bring its power back.
And then I think also some perspective, because often we have like our first tries and they're not polished and perfect, so we start like to criticize ourselves, we bring ourselves down. So you really need a bit like either like a mentor or like a long-term perspective, that it's like totally natural that when you start doing something new, it's not gonna be world class for a while. And so this generosity, like with yourself and with your own creations, because otherwise maybe we like light this little flame, but it gets extinguished too fast.
We need to fan it after we light it. Then we need to fan it so that it grows bigger.
And what I just mentioned when you say fan it, but I heard like fun in it.
Fun as well. Yes, absolutely.
So and I want to say, first of all, I realized it's also part of my personal imagination. Like when sometimes I misunderstand words, but in an interesting way that they make sense. And when you should add fun to it, like it should be you fan it and you put fun to it, like you make it fun, because then it becomes something you look forward to doing.
Absolutely. And I want also to ask something else, Christoph. You say that there is a connection between imagination and your purpose, or finding your purpose. So I would like to hear your thoughts on what is the connection there.
So first of all, when our imagination, when we think of it as a certain size, It's the size of a tiny house. And then we make it bigger, so it becomes like a proper house, and then maybe we turn it into a skyscraper, whatever. So I think this definitely increases the chances for our like purpose or mission in life to show up. But also what I want to say, because I think there's often this misunderstanding about purpose and mission in life. So I see it now more that we're like creative beings, and our purpose is to create in whatever way. And often it's like little hunches that we have in ourselves. And in my book, I call it golden thread. So there's something like tugging our interest, and then we need the courage to follow it and like tug on this golden thread and like follow it and see like where it leads us to. And so what I want to say is like, yeah, we have this like tiny project, but then maybe side, how do you say, other avenues pop up and that we also can follow. So when we follow our inner like hunches and our inner ideas and we bring them to life, then also like often other and maybe bigger things show up. So we naturally then find something that feels very meaningful to us. And I'm not sure if you only come to the world with like one purpose, one passion, but that we can create it and that we have many ones. Because I think also in this whole, I think it's almost like an industry, find your purpose and passion. It can also be limiting, because sometimes some people say like, your passion needs to be something like helping other people, like modern Mother Teresa, like you're only there to nourish the poor people. And I don't say that's wrong. That's certainly amazing if that's really like what resonates with you. But maybe your passion lies somewhere differently. That's not immediately maybe connected to other people, but you yourself start to beam. You're happy. You enjoy life. So this by itself will have an effect to the people around you. Or you're an inventor and you don't even talk to people because you have like maybe social problems, but you're downstairs in your laboratory and you're inventing like something amazing because you have like huge imagination, and then your invention suddenly helps thousands, millions of people. So yeah, so what I want to say is it's not only this like single path that can lead to your purpose.
I absolutely agree with that, and I can also, from my own personal experience, attest to what you said about it starts like a hunch. It's something small. It's not like a massive, a big thing that draws you. It is small, and you have to, first of all, pay attention to it and take some kind of action towards it. That's what I did with the podcast. It was a hunch in the beginning. There was nothing else. I didn't know that 4 years afterwards I would be doing it almost full time. So it is a beautiful journey of listening to that hunch and or that fire that we were saying earlier, and fun it while having fun as well. So thank you for this answer, and thank you for the conversation. It's very intriguing, and I think you gave some very useful and actionable steps for someone to take to cultivate the imagination. Do you want to share where can someone find you? When they can connect with you and find out more about what you do and your book, of course?
Thank you. I think where I'm most active on, but not super much, is Instagram. So there you can connect with me. And my book about imagination you find on 𝗁𝗁-𝗁-𝗁-𝗁-𝗁-𝗁-𝗁, which is a play on imagination, .de/book. I think these are the two best ways to connect.
Thank you. Yes, the links will be in the show notes. Christoph, I would like to ask you just a couple of quick fire questions to wrap this conversation up.
To fan it.
Yes, absolutely. And my first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Yeah. Growth, like you become more happy with your body, with yourself, you develop more bright emotions. I think you enjoy life in the long time, like it's like a upwards trajectory.
That's great. And if you could go back in time and let's say before 2015, rather than giving a specific age, let's say to that version of yourself before then, what's one piece of advice you would give him?
I think it could, like trust the process. Because when I look back, like you always try to like speed things up, but in a way there's always like kind of like logic to unfolding of life. So yeah, trust the unfolding of events and life will get better.
It's a profound advice, Christoph. Thank you. It's so important to have trust in the process, and many times we try to because we are impatient, we try to make things happen faster than they're meant to happen, but it's like growth. You can't force it. You can't make a flower grow faster. It has its own pace of growing. All you can do is cultivate all the conditions around it so that you allow that to happen. But you can't just pull it.
Exactly. So the advice could be maybe cultivate patience.
Thank you. Christoph, thank you very much for this interesting conversation I had with you today. And I learned a lot about imagination and some ways we can practically cultivate it and apply it in our lives. I want to wish you all the very best with all your projects and all you're doing. Last parting words from you?
I also want to thank you. The conversation felt really amazing. It was like great flow to it. And I hope people out there, don't file it away as another like interesting information, but really if it resonates with you, take it to heart and really try some things out and be generous with yourself and your progress. And I can just tell you the journey is worth it.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you got great value from today's episode. And if you'd be so kind, please take a moment to leave me an Apple Podcasts review, sharing how personal development mastery has made a difference to you today. And I will read the review in the podcast. Until next time, stand out, don't fit in,